What's a scary science fact that the public knows nothing about? Another Carrington event. The original Carrington event was in 1859, which was basically an intense geomagnetic storm that disrupted/knocked out telegrams because that's all the technology there was to disrupt back then. Nowadays we use electricity for virtually everything. If it hit now the effect would be like an EMP, but globally, there'd be no functional technology that involved electrics. In essence, losing all electrics would in turn stop communications, then logistics and then fundamental infrastructure like food distribution, healthcare and utilities, other than electricity. I learned about ton 618 the other day. My facts here may be mother-in-lawly incorrect, feel free to Google. It's a black hole about 10.3 billion light years away, but we can still detect the massive amount of light bending around it. It's so large, they had to make a new category of black hole for it called ultramassive black holes. It's believed to be the largest thing in the universe. Its diameter is 14 times the diameter of Neptune's orbit, so it could fit our entire solar system in it 14 times across, side to side. If the black hole replaced our sun, we would be deleted. If it replaced the black hole that is currently at the center of the Milky Way, within 120 years the Milky Way would be deleted. This black hole doesn't swallow planets, it swallows entire galaxies. The idea of this thing freaks me the F out. Brain aneurysms can be completely unpredictable and can happen at any time in your life no matter how healthy you are. A kid who I went to high school with at the age of 16 just did not wake up one morning and his cause of death was a brain aneurysm. Microplastics in the food and water supplies are crossing the blood/brain barrier. During World War II the Japanese would continuously experiment on the people they captured, like open a pregnant woman's stomach and see the baby, infect her with syphilis and see the effects etc. while the Nazis also did commit genocide and all that. Japan was never confronted about those war crimes. Scientists don't know exactly how acetaminophen works to relieve pain and reduce fever. They have an idea but nothing for sure. But yet it's the most commonly used pain reliever in the world. The plague is still out there. The bubonic plague is endemic in many parts of the world, but cases are very rare because we've got it pretty well handled. If there's a general breakdown in society like a nuclear war, supervolcano eruption or asteroid impact, it's out there waiting to come back. The vacuum decay death of the universe. The basic explain like 5 premise is that it is possible that at some point in the universe itself started collapsing into a more stable version of itself, and once this started, the collapse spreads outwards into all directions at the speed of light. Because it travels at the speed of light, there is no way to know it's coming. You could literally stop existing the next second. Antimicrobial resistance. The bacteria are getting resistant to the drugs much faster than the rate at which we are producing new drugs. Soon we will reach a scenario when antibiotics cannot treat simple yet lethal infections. Trauma can cause structural changes to your brain. PTSD is literally an injury. At any given time the Earth can be hit with a gamma-ray burst. We won't see it coming since it moves at the speed of light and all life apart from deep underground or deep in the ocean will be wiped out in minutes. Although unlikely it can happen at any time. If my college biology professor wasn't completely misinformed, most humans have some form of parasite living inside them. Some variety of worm, etc. There are just creepy crawlies in our insides and we might never notice them. The one that came closest to giving me nightmares was hookworms. Although the thought that you could have heartworms kind of messed with me, too. Evidently, they're not just for dogs. Many antibiotics make hormonal birth control stop working. Not just a fact but a warning. The United States has lost and never recovered at least 6 nuclear devices. 50% of insects have disappeared since 1970. Insect population is down 27% in the last 30 years, declining between 1 and 4% each year depending on the genus. Prions are terrifying. They're basically zombies at a protein level. They're misshapen in such a way that causes them to misshape other proteins. Normal methods of disinfection don't work. This makes researching them a very tricky matter, as while most cases involve eating infected meat, mishandling prion samples is all it takes. Tricky part is, there is no treatment either. Once they get in you, they are 100% fatal. It has been a while since I've studied them so this picture may be incomplete but I do know they're always fatal. Magnolia plants are so old that they predate the evolution of pollination by bees. They were pollinated by beetles. Neutrinos are a particle that has an extremely small chance of interacting with matter. Like if a rock was dropped randomly from space to the Earth, the chance it would hit a specific target is similar to the chance it would interact with any matter. They have to build huge chambers deep in the earth and wait months to have the possibility to detect one from the countless that constantly zoom through the earth from the sun. If the sun were to go supernova, it would create so many neutrinos that they would kill you, assuming nothing else did. Edit. Apparently, they detect more than I expected, several hundred a year. We still have no idea what consciousness is. Worse, we have not many ideas how to think about it. Just some philosophical ideas, Dennett, Chalmers, etc. I mean, we don't know how to build interstellar ship, but we could write books and make movies about it. We could speculate about different approaches and ideas. For consciousness, it's not true. We don't know why it exists. What is I? What is the role of consciousness? How it emerges? How to research it, and so on. Coal plants release 500 times more radiation directly into the atmosphere than any nuclear fission plant ever could. Grapefruits completely screw with a shitload of prescription medications. I only recently learned that when you get sunburned, the burn isn't because of skin cell damage. The UV radiation damages the DNA. Then the skin cells decide to commit suicide and fall off so that the damaged DNA doesn't produce cancer. I'll never be mad at my skin peeling again. When doing an autopsy, they don't put the organs back where they belong. They are all stored in the belly. That you should never use bleach to clean cat pee. The combination creates chlorine gas that is very toxic. If you're exposed to rabies and start to show symptoms, your chance of survival is virtually 0%. 1 in 3 people will get cancer. It's pretty messed up. An asteroid passed the Earth in September that was about 40 to 90 meters in diameter, and we didn't see it until a day later because it traveled towards us from the direction of the sun. It passed us at half the distance from the Earth to the moon. It's easier to make gunpowder than it is to bake a cake. If your dog swims in a lake after receiving a spot on flea treatment, it absolutely decimates the invertebrate population. A large dog swimming in 8 Olympic swimming pools worth of water soon after treatment will leach enough neurotoxin to kill 50% of the lake's invertebrate population within 48 hours. I say after, I mean relatively soon after, within say a day, to have an effect quite this devastating. The leaching does reduce over the month, but it's still there, and the effect of multiple dogs still allows for a terrible buildup of chemicals. Inside the permafrost around the world there is stored about twice the amount of CO2 we currently have in our atmosphere. That's why permafrost must stop melting. The German Nazi army consumed massive amounts of Pervitin, a brand name for literal meth, and the company producing Pervitin made the pills till the 1980s, and the armies used Pervitin for drills till then. The Nazis also put Pervitin in chocolates, calling it Hausfrauen Schokolade to ease the dreaded life of a stay-at-home mother, and so on. Eastern Germany still has a huge meth problem, which is a whole lot less surprising, knowing that it has been produced there legally up until fairly recently. There is a naturally occurring thought in many humans named the call of the void where, without reason, humans see a way they could die and they wonder whether they should kill themselves, even if they have no real intention of doing so. Edit. Yes, the true term is l'appel du vide, the French term for call of the void in quat. There's many unknown and forgotten diseases trapped in the permafrost, and it's slowly but surely melting away. There's been a few cases in Russia, while exploring for oil/gas I believe, of people dying of strange diseases that we have no idea how to treat, because they've basically been hidden there since before medicine even existed. Some could be contagious, we just know very little about it. Approximately 60%, in some reports, of the world's population have the parasite Toxoplasma gondii in their brain. For a long time it's thought to have been a benign presence, but recent statistical research shows that it may have an impact on things like levels of anger and rates of accidents and suicide. When gondii is on rats, it changes their behavior so that they find the smell of cat urine sexually appealing. So they find cats and get eaten. In the gut of the cat the parasite can reproduce. When the baby boomer generation fills the nursing homes, there very likely won't be enough nursing staff to care for them as more and more nurses are leaving the profession. We've scoured the ocean mostly clean of life. The major fisheries are down something like 80% from their peaks, and nobody is doing anything about it. All onions, all veggies in the allium family, are toxic to dogs. Worst case scenario then can develop AIA, autoimmune hemolytic anemia, whereas the body destroys its own red blood cells. This disease is about 80% fatal. My dog caught it, we are not sure from where, but his was a primary disease, not a result of a cancer. We think he was eating leeks out of the garden. Took a week in the hospital, 2 blood transfusions, and about 6 months of meds to get him back. He started at 45 pounds and was down to 19 pounds at the worst part of it. Late to the party, but here goes. There are weaponized strains of anthrax which can remain viable and dangerous for 40+ years after release. In 1942, the UK tested an anthrax bomb on Gruinard Island, killing a flock of sheep in days. Some died in hours. Examination showed that the spores could remain active for decades and decontamination proved impossible at the time. The project was scrapped. Fast forward to 1981, an eco-terrorist group smuggled a sample off of the island and threatened the UK government with releasing it if the island wasn't decontaminated. The spores were still active and deadly. It took 4 years to plan and execute the cleanup, using 280 tons of formaldehyde in a seawater solution, and removing 7 hectares worth of soil to a depth of 3 feet, about 58,000 tons of topsoil, where the concentration was too high for the juice to do the job. The island was confirmed clean in 1990, 4 years after cleanup began. If there was a threat traveling to Earth at the speed of light, we would die instantly out of nowhere because we have no way of seeing it coming. A study by MIT in 1972 predicted that society will collapse one way or another during the 2040s. An economist in 2012 reviewed it and he said we are right on track with their trajectory. They had many scenarios, but the one that is playing out is that pollution is making more and more land infertile, which makes it harder to grow food. If the prediction pans out, eventually we won't have enough food to feed everybody, which will start a series of events that will lead to the collapse of society. Heart muscle cells don't reproduce much in adults, roughly 1% per year. If you have an infarction or other stressor that kills those cells, then your heart won't be able to grow new cells to replace the dead ones. This is why patients with diseases like heart failure end up needing a heart transplant. Trying to get this process to happen is a major goal for many cardiac researchers. DuPont knowingly infected over 90% of the American population with PFOAs, a harmful plastic that has a half-life of 20 years. Lawsuit is still ongoing but no one seems to be bothered. So many people will struggle with infertility. It's not talked about or really discussed in middle school or high school in health class. When it happens, it's such a shock to the families and they are completely unprepared. The numbers are going up as well. Statistical 1/4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, which is pretty high, but again, miscarriage isn't discussed. The human body temperature in developed countries is actually declining, and at the same time global warming is increasing the temperature thresholds for many fungus types. This is leading to a whole new medical issue of fungus infecting humans, and its main source of protection, body temperature, is no longer working. That body temperature is a large reason for the success of mammals all over the world. After the KT extinction, the sun was blocked and cold-blooded species couldn't raise their body temperature to kill off infections in their bodies. There is ample evidence that after KT, that fungus spread all over the world in massive quantities, which leads many to believe this led to the ascendancy of mammals on Earth. The youngest persons who developed Alzheimer's were around 25 years old. One lady got diagnosed with it at 31 while pregnant. By the way, when you get the disease at like 65, it didn't suddenly begin. It has been creeping up and ravaging your brain for at least 20 years if not more. You just didn't realize it because our brain is very good at compensating damages until it cannot. Basically, the day you lose yourself in the supermarket, it's too late, your brain is mostly mush and there is so far nothing you can do. That means that if you're 40 to 60 years old and reading this, chances are that some of you already started to experience the onset of Alzheimer's brain degeneration. It's just not advanced enough for you to realize it. Have a nice day. A CME, coronal mass ejection, is the most likely civilization-ending disaster to come from space. The sun emits them regularly, and they hit the Earth every few hundred years. The last one occurred in the 1890s, but society at the time was less susceptible to the effects. Were one to hit the Earth today, it would basically destroy all the tech infrastructure on whichever side of the planet is facing the sun at the time. This would knock the affected hemisphere back into the stupid ages, and it would take decades to recover, altering the global balance of power forever. It's only a matter of time. We could mitigate the effects, but it would be expensive, so we haven't and likely never will. At least not until the problem becomes real to people. By then it will be too late. This is a much more likely scenario than an asteroid impact. Bananas could be gone within a year. We only grow one type of banana tree. If a specific infection occurs that kills that kind of tree, it won't spread like wildfire and we have no alternative. Apparently this already happened not so long ago. How easy it is to create large amounts of high explosives. Everyone determined enough and desperate enough can create easy workable explosives. The world is literally running out of sand that is usable to manufacture concrete. Most of the world's sand is in its deserts, but usable sand only comes from river beds, shores and lake beds. People are being murdered over sand right now. Long period comets have orbits that are in the tens of thousands of years in length. There are some that literally have not been seen since before the dawn of civilization. They are also usually very dark in color, so are pretty much undetectable until they are around Jupiter's orbit. At that point they are moving so fast we would have about 6 months warning if one was on a collision course with Earth. There are planets in space that defy laws of nature as we understand them. TRES-2b eats light and is darker than coal. It reflects less than 1% of its star's light. HD 189773b rains glass. Gliese 581cc, if it were habitable, would have constant red skies. It's also believed to be tidal locked, so constant day on one side and constant night on the other. Space is scary in general as it is. Earth is legit a miracle in the grand scheme of space.